The phone rang during breakfast and everything changed. Sana Brooks had been setting down Ji-hoon's coffee, black, no sugar, exactly 180 degrees, when his private line buzzed, the one that never rang unless something had gone terribly wrong. She watched his jaw tighten as he glanced at the unknown number, watched his fingers drum once against the marble table before he answered. The voice on the other end spoke rapid Mandarin. Ji-hoon's face went blank, then pale. His eyes cut to his second-in-command across the table, then to the window overlooking Manhattan's Koreatown, then, for just a fraction of a second, to her. Sana's breath caught. She knew that look. Panic, barely contained behind a mask of control. The voice continued, sharp and threatening. Ji-hoon's fingers pressed white against his phone. He didn't speak Mandarin, neither did anyone in his organization. Whoever was calling knew that, knew they had him cornered. "What do they want?" his second asked in Korean. Ji-hoon's silence was answer enough. He didn't know. Sana's hands trembled as she set the coffee pot down. Every instinct screamed at her to stay quiet, stay invisible, stay safe. She'd spent 3 years hiding. 3 years building this perfect disguise as just another housekeeper in just another wealthy household. But the voice on that phone, she recognized the cadence, the dialect, the threat. Before she could stop herself, before she could remember why she'd buried this part of herself, Sana stepped forward and held out her hand. "Sir," she said quietly, "may I?" Ji-hoon stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Sana Brooks, quiet, efficient, almost invisible Sana who'd worked in his penthouse for 8 months, stood with her hand extended, asking for his phone during a crisis call. Her dark eyes held something he'd never seen before. Not fear, not confusion, recognition. "Do you speak Mandarin?" The question came out harder than he intended. "Yes, sir." Her voice remained steady, but he caught the slight tension in her shoulders, the way her locks had started to slip from the neat bun she always wore. "I can translate." The voice on the phone barked something sharp. A demand. A threat. Ji-hoon had built an empire on reading people, on knowing when to trust and when to eliminate. Right now, with a hostile caller on the line and no one else in the room who could understand a word, he had exactly one option. He handed her the phone. Sana's fingers wrapped around it, and something shifted in her posture. Her spine straightened. Her expression cooled. When she lifted the phone to her ear and spoke, the Mandarin that flowed from her lips was flawless, native, dangerous. "This is Sana Brooks. State your business." Ji-hoon watched her face change as she listened. Watched color drain from her deep brown skin, watched her hand tighten on the phone until her knuckles showed strain. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said in Mandarin, her voice sharp. "That has nothing to do with—" The person on the other end cut her off. Sana's eyes widened, then narrowed. When she spoke again, her words came faster, more urgent. "Debts of blood don't expire." Ji-hoon's second-in-command, Min-soo, stood abruptly. "Boss, what's happening?" But Ji-hoon held up a hand, silencing him, because he was watching Sana's face and what he saw there made his blood run cold. Not confusion, not surprise, terror, pure, visceral terror. She lowered the phone slowly, her breathing shallow. For a long moment she just stood there, staring at nothing. Then her gaze cut to Ji-hoon, and he saw calculation behind the fear, saw her weighing options, measuring exits, preparing to run. "Hang up," he said quietly. She did. The silence in the penthouse stretched taut. Morning light streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the sleek, modern furniture, the art on the walls, the carefully controlled world Ji-hoon had built. Outside, New York hummed with life. Inside, everything had stopped. "Translate," Ji-hoon commanded. "Every word." Sana's throat worked. "He said your shipment from the port of Los Angeles has been intercepted. He's holding it ransom for $5 million. He wants the money by midnight, or he'll sell your cargo to your competitors and send proof of your smuggling operations to the FBI. Min-soo cursed in Korean. Who was it? Which organization? But Ji-hoon was still watching Sana, watching the way she held herself like a soldier, not a housekeeper, watching the way her eyes tracked the exits without seeming to, watching the way her hands had stopped trembling and gone completely still. "Who are you?" he asked softly. She met his gaze. "I'm your employee, Mr. Kang." "No." He stood, and at his full height, 6'3", with the build of someone who'd done more than order violence, who'd committed it personally, he saw her fight, not to step back. "My employee doesn't speak fluent Mandarin. My employee doesn't recognize triad threats. My employee doesn't use phrases like, 'debts of blood don't expire.'" Color touched her cheeks. Anger, shame, fear. "That's a common saying," she tried, "in the Chinese underworld." Ji-hoon moved closer, his voice dropping to something dangerous. "I'm going to ask you again, and this time I want the truth. Who are you?" Sana's jaw tightened. For a moment, he thought she might bolt, might try to run. He'd already signaled Min-soo to block the door without her noticing. Instead, she lifted her chin and said, "My name is Sana Liang Brooks. My father was Marcus Liang. 3 years ago, he was accused of stealing $5 million in conflict diamonds during a negotiation between the San Francisco Triad and the Kim family syndicate in Los Angeles. He disappeared. They've been looking for him ever since." The room went deadly quiet. Ji-hoon's mind raced through connections, through names, through old debts and older grudges. The Kim family. He knew them, distantly. Business associates of his father's generation. And a theft 3 years ago. "The Kim family lost those diamonds," Min-soo said slowly. "They suspected an inside job. It caused a war between them and the Triad that lasted 6 months." "I know." Sana's voice was hollow. "My father was the translator at the negotiation. When the diamonds disappeared, both sides blamed him. The Triad wanted blood, the Kims wanted their money. Dad took me and ran. 3 months later, I woke up and he was gone. Just gone. No note, no explanation, no body." "So you became a maid?" Ji-hoon's voice held no sympathy, only calculation. "You changed your name, hid in my house, and waited." "I survived," she corrected sharply. "I erased Sana Liang. I became Sana Brooks. I moved across the country and found work where no one would look twice at me, where I could disappear. Until today." She nodded. "Until today. That call. It was Chen Wei, head of the San Francisco Triad. He's been hunting my family for 3 years, and now he knows I work for you." Ji-hoon felt the pieces clicking into place, felt the walls closing in. "What did you tell him?" "That I don't know where the diamonds are, that I haven't seen my father since he disappeared, that his grudge is with a dead man." "And?" Sana's expression hardened. "And he said if the Kang family is harboring a Liang, then the Kang family has inherited the debt. He said you have 48 hours to produce either my father, the diamonds, or $5 million in cash. Otherwise he's coming to collect in blood." Min-soo exploded. "This is insane. We had nothing to do with—" "It doesn't matter." Ji-hoon's voice cut through the anger like ice. "He's using this as an excuse. The Triad has been trying to move into our territory for 2 years. This gives them justification." He turned back to Sana, and what she saw in his face made her breath catch. Not rage, not betrayal. Something colder, more calculating. "You brought a war to my door," he said quietly. "I didn't mean to—" "Intent doesn't matter, results do." He moved past her toward the windows, his hands sliding into his pockets. Below, Koreatown stretched out in a grid of restaurants and shops, of his businesses and his people, his responsibility. "Chen Wei thinks he can use you to leverage me. He's wrong." Sana's voice came out small. "What are you going to do?" Ji-hoon looked at her reflection in the glass. This woman who'd served his coffee and cleaned his home and hidden a lifetime of secrets behind downcast eyes. This woman who spoke like the underworld and moved like a fighter. This woman who just made him a target. "I'm going to find out if your father really stole those diamonds," he said. "And then I'm going to decide whether you're worth the war you just started." Sana sat in Ji-hoon's office while he made calls, sharp clipped conversations in Korean that she couldn't fully follow but understood the tone of. Danger, mobilization, war prep. Min-soo watched her from his position by the door like she might explode at any moment. "I should leave," she said quietly. "If I disappear again, maybe Chen Wei he'll hunt you down and kill you to make a point." Ji-hoon ended his call and set his phone down with deliberate care. "You don't understand how this works. The moment he recognized you, the moment he connected you to me, you became a chess piece. Running now just makes you easier to capture. I've been running for 3 years. And you were lucky. He leaned back in his chair, that dragon tattoo visible above his collar where his white shirt, 4 buttons undone, as always, exposed his throat. The Triad has resources in every major city. The only reason they didn't find you is because they weren't looking hard enough. Now they are. Now you're interesting again. Sana's hands clenched in her lap. So what do you want from me? Information. Ji-hoon's dark eyes pinned her in place. Everything you know about your father's operation, his contacts, his methods, his enemies. If we're going to prove he didn't take those diamonds, we need to know who did. I was 25 when it happened, she protested. Dad kept me out of the business. I knew he worked as a translator, but don't lie to me again. His voice dropped to something dangerous. You speak fluent Mandarin. You recognized Chen Wei's voice. You used Triad terminology without thinking. Your father didn't just keep you out of the business, he trained you for it. The accusation hung between them. Sana's jaw tightened. He wanted me to have options. He said in our world, language was power, protection, a way to survive if everything went wrong. Smart man. Dead man, she corrected bitterly. Or disappeared man. Same difference. Ji-hoon studied her for a long moment. You don't think he stole the diamonds? It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. No, my father was many things, but he wasn't stupid. He knew stealing from both the Triad and the Kims was suicide. He wouldn't have done it. Then who did? I don't know. But someone wanted him to take the fall for it. Min-soo spoke up from the door. Boss, we should contact the Kims. If they lost the diamonds too, they have as much interest in finding the real thief as we do. The Kims are old guard, Ji-hoon said. They won't work with us unless we have leverage. Right now all we have is a woman they think is the daughter of a thief. I can help, Sana interjected. Both men looked at her. She straightened her shoulders, feeling the weight of 3 years of hiding start to crack away. I can reach out to my father's contacts, people he worked with, people who might know what really happened that night. Absolutely not, Ji-hoon said flatly. The moment you surface, Chen Wei will know. He probably has ears in half the organizations on the West Coast. Then what do you suggest? We sit here and wait for him to come collect his blood debt. The words came out sharper than she intended. More challenging. The kind of tone a maid should never use with her employer, especially when that employer was a Mafia boss who could make her disappear with a phone call. But Ji-hoon didn't react with anger. Instead, something almost like respect flickered across his face. No, he said slowly. We make him come to us, on our terms, in our territory. He stood and buttoned his shirt 1 more button, still leaving 3 undone, still showing that dragon that seemed to coil with menace. Chen Wei wants to use you against me. We're going to flip that script. How? By making him think you're valuable enough to negotiate for. Ji-hoon moved around the desk, and Sana had to tilt her head back to hold his gaze. Up close, he was overwhelming. All sharp angles and controlled violence and a presence that made the air feel thinner. You're not my maid anymore, Sana. As of right now, you're under my protection. Which means Chen Wei can't touch you without going through me first. Her heart hammered. Why would you do that? You don't know me. You don't owe me anything. No, he agreed. But Chen Wei threatening my household, using my employee to leverage me? That's disrespect I can't let stand. He wants a war? I'll give him one. But I'll make sure he regrets starting it. Sana searched his face for deception, for the angle, for what he really wanted. But all she saw was cold calculation and something else. Something that looked almost like principle. You're doing this because he insulted you, she said slowly. Ji-hoon's lips curved slightly. I'm doing this because in my world, protecting what's mine is everything. You work for me. You live in my house. That makes you mine to protect, not his to threaten. The possessiveness in his words should have frightened her, should have made her want to run. Instead, for the first time in 3 years, Sana felt something like safety. What do you need me to do? She asked. First, you're moving into the East Wing. Guest suite, full security, 24-hour protection. I'm fine in my room. Your room is staff quarters with a window lock a child could break. Ji-hoon's tone left no room for argument. If Chen Wei sends people, they'll come for you first. I'm not giving them an easy target. Sana nodded slowly. Okay, what else? Then you're going to tell me everything you remember about that night. Every detail. Every person who was there. Every word your father said afterward. We're going to build a timeline and we're going to find the holes in it. And if we find proof my father was innocent, Ji-hoon's expression hardened. Then we use it to destroy Chen Wei's justification for this war. We expose the real thief, and we make sure everyone in the underworld knows what happens when someone tries to use my people as pawns. The way he said, my people, made something warm unfurl in Sana's chest. Dangerous, stupid, but undeniable. And if we can't find proof, she made herself ask. The silence stretched. Ji-hoon's dark eyes held hers, and she saw the truth there before he spoke it. Then we prepare for war, he said quietly, and we make sure we win. A knock at the door broke the moment. Min-soo opened it to reveal a young man with sharp features and nervous energy. Boss, we have a problem, he said in Korean. Chen Wei's people were spotted in Koreatown, 3 blocks from here. They're watching the building. Ji-hoon's jaw tightened. How many? At least 4 that we've identified, probably more. He's moving faster than I expected. Ji-hoon turned back to Sana. Change of plans. You're not leaving this penthouse until I've secured the perimeter. Min-soo, get her moved to the east wing now. Double the guards on all entrances. No one gets in or out without my personal clearance. Yes, boss. As Min-soo gestured for Sana to follow him, Ji-hoon caught her wrist. His grip was firm but not painful, and the heat of his skin against hers sent electricity up her arm. Sana, he said, his voice low enough that only she could hear. I meant what I said. You're under my protection now. That's not conditional. That's not temporary. Until this is over, you're mine to guard, understand? She nodded, not trusting her voice. Good. He released her, but his eyes stayed locked on hers. Because I don't lose what's mine. Ever. The East Wing guest suite was 3 times the size of Sana's former room, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, a king-size bed with silk sheets, and a bathroom bigger than some apartments she'd lived in. It felt like a gilded cage. She stood at the window, watching the city lights flicker in the darkness, and tried to process how completely her life had shattered in the span of 6 hours. This morning, she'd been invisible, safe. Now she was the center of a war between organizations that could kill her without blinking, and Ji-hoon had declared her his to protect. The thought shouldn't have made her feel, whatever this was, warm, secure, wanted. You're insane, she muttered to her reflection. He's a criminal, he kills people. He's not your hero. But he'd stood between her and Chen Wei without hesitation, had mobilized his entire organization to keep her safe, had looked at her like she mattered. A knock at the door made her spin. Yes? It's Min-soo. Boss wants to see you in his office. Sana took a breath and opened the door. Min-soo's expression was carefully neutral as he escorted her through the penthouse, past guards who now stood at every corridor, every entrance, every vulnerable point. Ji-hoon was standing at his desk, studying a map of the city marked with red and blue pins. He looked up when she entered, and she caught something flash across his face. Relief, concern. It vanished too quickly to name. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. We need to talk about your father's last job. Sana sat, folding her hands in her lap. What do you want to know? Everything. Start from the beginning. How did he get hired for the diamond negotiation? She thought back, sorting through memories she'd tried to bury. A man named Richard Kim contacted him. Said they needed a translator they could trust for a major deal with Chinese partners. Dad had worked with the Kim family before. Smaller jobs. He thought this was his chance to prove himself. What did he tell you about the job? Not much. Just that it was high stakes. That both sides were nervous. That if it went well, we'd finally have enough money to... She trailed off. To what? Sana's throat tightened. To leave. To disappear properly. Dad wanted out of the life. He said this job would give us the nest egg we needed to start over somewhere safe. Ji-hoon's expression darkened. So he knew it was dangerous. He knew the people involved were dangerous. But he trusted Richard Kim. Said the Kims were honorable. That they kept their word. The Kims are ruthless, Ji-hoon corrected. But they do keep their word. If Richard Kim vouched for your father, he must have believed in him, until the diamonds disappeared and everyone blamed Dad. Ji-hoon pulled out a folder and slid it across the desk. Inside were photographs, crime scene photos, Sana realized with a jolt. A warehouse, blood, broken glass. This is from that night, Ji-hoon said quietly. I have a contact in the LAPD who pulled the file for me. 2 men died during the exchange. 1 triad enforcer, 1 Kim family guard. The diamonds vanished. Your father disappeared 6 hours later. Sana stared at the photos, her stomach churning. Dad came home that night covered in blood. He wouldn't tell me what happened, just said to pack a bag that we were leaving immediately. I thought... She swallowed hard. I thought he'd killed someone, that he'd finally crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Did he seem guilty? Scared? Scared, she said immediately. Terrified. He kept looking out the windows like someone was coming for us. He made me dye my hair, change my clothes, leave my phone. We drove straight through the night to Seattle, then took a bus to Portland, then another to Salt Lake City. We zigzagged across the country for weeks. He was running from something specific, Ji-hoon murmured. Not just general fear. He knew who was coming. The triad, the Kims, everyone. Or someone else entirely. Ji-hoon's finger tapped one of the photos. Look at this. The entry wounds on both victims. Professional. Clean. Not heat of the moment. Someone executed them. Sana leaned forward, forcing herself to look closer. You think the theft was planned? That someone set up the whole thing? I think your father walked into a trap. I think someone wanted those diamonds and needed a scapegoat. A translator no one would miss, someone expendable. Anger flared hot in her chest. My father wasn't expendable. To you, no. To them? Ji-hoon's voice was gentle but firm. He was perfect. Caught between 2 organizations, trusted by both, valuable to neither. If he took the fall, both sides would focus on him instead of looking for the real thief. So who was it? Who would have had access? That's what we need to figure out. Ji-hoon pulled out another document. I've been going through the guest list for that negotiation. 15 people total. Your father, 5 Kim family members, 5 triad representatives, 4 security guards, 2 from each side. Of those, only 3 are still alive. Everyone else has been killed or disappeared in the last 3 years. Sana felt cold. Someone's cleaning house. Eliminating witnesses, Ji-hoon agreed, which means we're running out of time. If Chen Wei is making his move now, it's because he's ready for endgame. Whatever really happened that night, he doesn't want it coming to light. You think Chen Wei knows the truth? I think Chen Wei either knows the truth or is the truth. Ji-hoon's eyes were hard. And I think he's using you to cover his tracks. If he can blame everything on the Liang family, he closes this chapter permanently. Sana's mind raced. The 3 survivors. Can we talk to them? 1 is in Kim family custody in Los Angeles, unreachable. 1 is in federal prison on unrelated charges, possible but risky. The 3rd, Ji-hoon hesitated. The 3rd is a woman named Soo-jin Park. She was one of the Kim family guards that night. Last I heard, she was living in Brooklyn under witness protection. Can you find her? I already have people on it. Ji-hoon's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his expression went cold. Chen Wei just made contact again. He wants a meeting. Tomorrow night. Neutral ground. Sana's pulse jumped. Are you going to go? Yes. Then I'm coming with you. Absolutely not. He wants me, Ji-hoon. She stood, planting her palms on his desk. That's what this is about. If you show up without me, he'll know you're stalling. But if I'm there, if he sees I'm under your protection, it changes the dynamic. It proves you're serious about defending your territory. It also puts you in the same room as the man who wants you dead. I've been in worse rooms. Sana held his gaze. I survived 3 years on my own. I can survive 1 meeting. Ji-hoon studied her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he stood and moved around the desk until he was inches away. Sana had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact, but she refused to step away. If I bring you, he said quietly, you follow my lead. You speak when I tell you to speak. You stay at my side every second, and if things go wrong, you run. Understand? I understand. I'm serious, Sana. Chen Wei is not a man who shows mercy. If he thinks he can use you against me, then we don't give him the chance. She lifted her chin. We go in strong, we go in united. And we show him that threatening you was the biggest mistake of his life. Something flickered in Ji-hoon's eyes. Approval, desire, whatever it was made heat pool low in her belly. You're not what I expected, he murmured. Neither are you. His hand came up, and for a heart-stopping moment, Sana thought he might touch her face, might close the distance between them, might... His phone rang. Ji-hoon stepped back, the moment shattering. Min-soo. Report. As he took the call, Sana released a breath she hadn't known she was holding. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Her skin felt too tight. This was dangerous. More dangerous than Chen Wei. More dangerous than the truth about her father. Because she was starting to care about Kang Ji-hoon, and in their world, caring about someone was the fastest way to lose them. The meeting was set for a restaurant in Chinatown. Neutral territory, supposedly. Sans dressed carefully in dark jeans, a black silk blouse and boots that looked elegant, but could run if needed. She pulled her locks into a high ponytail and studied her reflection. She looked like someone who could stand beside a Mafia boss, like someone who belonged in this world. The thought should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like coming home. Ji-hoon was waiting in the foyer when she emerged. He wore all black. Slacks, dress shirt, leather jacket that probably cost more than her entire wardrobe. The dragon tattoo was visible above his collar, and his dark hair was perfectly styled. He looked dangerous, lethal, untouchable. His eyes swept over her and his jaw tightened. You look ready, she finished for him. I was going to say beautiful. His voice was rough, but ready works too. Heat flooded her cheeks. Before she could respond, Min-soo appeared with 4 guards in tow. Cars are ready, boss. I've got scouts on every route. If Chen Wei tries anything, he won't. Ji-hoon's confidence was absolute. Not tonight. Tonight is about posturing, testing boundaries, seeing if I'll fold. And will you? Sana asked quietly. His eyes locked on hers. Never. The restaurant was exactly what Sana expected. Expensive, elegant, with enough dark corners and private rooms for deals that couldn't see daylight. The owner greeted Ji-hoon with respect that bordered on fear and led them to a back room where Chen Wei was already waiting. He was older than Sana remembered, mid-50s with silver threading through his black hair and lines carved deep around his eyes. But those eyes were sharp, calculating, utterly cold. 2 guards flanked him, both armed, both watching with the stillness of predators. Kang Ji-hoon. Chen Wei spoke in Mandarin, his voice smooth. Thank you for accepting my invitation. Chen Wei. Ji-hoon inclined his head slightly. Respect without submission. You made it difficult to refuse. Chen Wei's gaze slid to Sana, and she felt the weight of it like a physical thing. And you brought the girl. How interesting. Sana kept her expression neutral, kept her shoulders back, kept breathing. Sana Brooks is under my protection, Ji-hoon said, switching to English, a power move, claiming linguistic territory. Any threat to her is a threat to me. Is that so? Chen Wei smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I wonder if you'd feel the same if you knew her full history. I know she's Marcus Liang's daughter. I know you've been hunting her family for 3 years. I know you're using her as an excuse to move against me. Ji-hoon's voice was ice. What I don't know is why you're wasting both our time with this theater. The temperature in the room dropped. Chen Wei leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. Marcus Liang stole $5 million in diamonds from a joint operation between my organization and the Kim family. Those diamonds belong to me. His daughter, he nodded toward Sana, is the only remaining link to recovering them. I don't have them, Sana said in perfect Mandarin. I don't know where my father is. I don't know what happened to your diamonds. Don't you? Chen Wei's smile widened. Because I find it very suspicious that Marcus Liang's daughter just happens to be working in the house of one of New York's most powerful Korean crime bosses. What are the odds? Ji-hoon's hand found Sana's under the table, his grip firm and grounding. The odds are that she needed work and I needed staff, nothing more. Or, Chen Wei countered, the odds are that the Kang family has been harboring a fugitive, protecting a thief's daughter. perhaps even benefiting from those stolen diamonds. Careful. Ji-hoon's voice dropped to something deadly. You're making accusations you can't prove. Can't I? Chen Wei pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. Inside were photographs, recent ones. Sana entering Ji-hoon's building, Sana shopping in Koreatown, Sana at a coffee shop, laughing at something on her phone. They'd been watching her for weeks. She's been under your roof for 8 months, Chen Wei continued. 8 months where you could have been using her to negotiate for the diamonds. 8 months where you could have been planning to sell them yourself. That's insane, Sana snapped. I didn't even know Ji-hoon before I started working for him. This is all convenient coincidence? Chen Wei's eyes glittered. I don't believe in coincidence, Miss Liang. I believe in patterns, and the pattern here suggests that your father made a deal with the Kang family. That he gave them the diamonds in exchange for protection for his daughter. Ji-hoon's fingers tightened on Sana's. You're reaching. If I had 5 million in diamonds, I wouldn't need your cargo shipments. I wouldn't need to do business with you at all. Unless you were being cautious. Unless you were waiting for the heat to die down before moving them. Chen Wei leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to produce either Marcus Liang, the diamonds, or $5 million in cash within 48 hours. If you don't, I'm going to assume the Kang family is complicit in the theft, and I'm going to act accordingly. You're threatening war over a 3-year-old crime you can't prove I had anything to do with, Ji-hoon said flatly. I'm collecting a debt. Chen Wei stood. 48 hours, Mr. Kang. Don't waste them. He turned to leave, but Sana's voice stopped him cold. What if I can prove my father didn't take your diamonds? Chen Wei paused. Excuse me? Sana stood, shaking off Ji-hoon's grip. What if I can prove someone else stole them? Someone who set my father up to take the fall? Would that settle your debt? Sana... Ji-hoon's voice held warning, but Chen Wei's interest was piqued. That depends. What proof do you have? Give me 72 hours, Sana said. 3 days to find evidence. If I can prove my father's innocence, you leave us alone. You drop this vendetta. You let the past stay buried. And if you can't, Sana's jaw tightened, then I'll give myself to you. No protection, no interference from the Kang family. You can do whatever you want with me. No! Ji-hoon was on his feet instantly. That's not happening. But Chen Wei was smiling now. 3 days. 72 hours from this moment. If you can provide proof that someone else took my diamonds, I'll consider your father's debt paid. But if you fail, his eyes glittered. You come with me willingly, no resistance. Done, Sana said. Not done, Ji-hoon snarled. Sana, we're leaving. I accept your terms, Miss Liang. Chen Wei extended his hand. Sana shook it, ignoring Ji-hoon's furious glare. 3 days, Chen Wei repeated. Don't disappoint me. He left with his guards, and the moment the door closed, Ji-hoon rounded on Sana. What the hell were you thinking? His voice shook with barely controlled rage. You just bet your life on a 3-year-old mystery with no leads and no evidence. I bought us time, Sana shot back, and I gave us a goal. Chen Wei was never going to believe you didn't have the diamonds, but if we can prove who really took them, we have 3 days to do what the LAPD, the FBI, and 2 criminal organizations couldn't do in 3 years. Ji-hoon's hands gripped her shoulders. Do you understand what you just agreed to? If we fail, he'll kill you. Slowly. Painfully. And there's nothing I can do to stop him because you gave your word. Then we don't fail. Sana met his gaze steadily. We find Sujin Park. We get her testimony. We figure out who really stole those diamonds. And we make Chen Wei eat his accusations. And if we can't, then I face the consequences. Alone. No. Ji-hoon's voice was raw. Not alone. Never alone. I told you. You're under my protection. That doesn't end because you made a stupid deal. Ji-hoon. I don't lose what's mine, Sana, remember? His forehead pressed against hers, his breath warm on her lips. And you're mine now, whether you meant to be or not. Her heart stopped, started again, too fast. We have 3 days, she whispered. Then we'd better not waste them. They found Sujin Park in a rent-controlled apartment in Brooklyn, living under the name Sarah Park and working as a night shift nurse. She answered the door with suspicion, etched into every line of her face. and the moment she saw Sana, recognition flared. "You're Marcus's girl," she breathed. "Yes," Sana said. "We need to talk. About the night the diamonds disappeared." Sujin tried to close the door. Ji-hoon's hand stopped it. "Please," Sana added. "My life depends on it." Something in her voice must have convinced Sujin, because after a long moment, she stepped back and let them in. The apartment was small but neat, with medical textbooks stacked on the coffee table, and photos of a family Sana assumed wasn't really Sujin's covering the walls, creating a false history, a false life, just like Sana had done. "I can't help you," Sujin said immediately. "I told the cops everything I knew 3 years ago. They didn't believe me then. No one's going to believe me now." "Tell us anyway," Ji-hoon said quietly. Sujin looked between them, this powerful Korean crime boss and the black woman with haunted eyes, who looked so much like the translator she'd once worked with. Finally, she sighed and sat down. "The negotiation was supposed to be simple," she began. "The triad had diamonds, the Kims had cash. Your father was there to translate the terms, make sure both sides understood the deal. I was there as security." "What went wrong?" Sana asked. "Everything." Sujin's hands twisted in her lap. About halfway through the negotiation, the lights went out, just for 30 seconds. When they came back on, the diamonds were gone and 2 men were dead. Everyone started shouting, pointing guns. Your father tried to calm everyone down, but what? But someone had blood on their hands, literal blood, and it wasn't your father. Sana leaned forward. "Who?" Sujin's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "Richard Kim." The name hung in the air like a bomb. "Richard Kim," Ji-hoon repeated slowly. "The man who hired Marcus Liang." Sujin nodded. "He had blood on his sleeve. I saw it. But then he pointed at your father and started screaming that Marcus had betrayed them, that Marcus had stolen the diamonds in the chaos, and everyone believed him because Marcus ran." "He ran because he knew they'd kill him," Sana said hoarsely. "Maybe. Or maybe he ran because he knew the truth, that Richard Kim had set him up, that the whole thing was a trap." Sujin's eyes were wet. "I tried to speak up, tried to tell them what I'd seen. The Kim family kicked me out, told me to keep my mouth shut or I'd disappear too. So I ran, changed my name, hid. Why would Richard Kim steal his own family's diamonds?" Ji-hoon's mind was racing through possibilities. "Insurance fraud," Sana suggested. "He steals them, blames the triad, and the Kim family collects twice. Once from insurance, once from whatever Richard sold the diamonds for. Or he had debts," Sujin added. "The Kim family is ruthless with their own. If Richard owed money, if he'd made mistakes, stealing the diamonds and blaming it on the negotiation might have been his only way out." Ji-hoon pulled out his phone and made a call. "Min-soo, I need everything you can find on Richard Kim. Bank records, property holdings, known associates, and find out where he is right now." He listened for a moment, his expression darkening. "When?" "I see. Thank you." He ended the call and looked at Sana. "Richard Kim died 6 months ago. Car accident in Los Angeles. Single vehicle collision, no witnesses." "That's convenient," Sana said bitterly. "Too convenient," Ji-hoon agreed. "Someone's tying up loose ends." Sujin stood abruptly. "You need to leave. If you're investigating this, if you're asking questions, whoever killed Richard will come for you too. Will come for me." "Then come with us," Sana urged. "We can protect you. Ji-hoon has resources. I've been hiding for 3 years. I'm not stopping now." Sujin moved toward the door. "I'm sorry about your father. I'm sorry I couldn't do more. But I have a life here, a real life. I won't risk it." Ji-hoon pulled out a card and set it on the table. "If you change your mind, or if anyone comes asking questions about that night." Sujin didn't touch the card, didn't acknowledge it, just opened the door and waited for them to leave. In the car, Sana pressed her palms against her eyes. "We're running out of time. We have Sujin's testimony, but it's not enough. Chen Wei will never believe it without proof." "Then we find proof." Ji-hoon's voice was determined. "Min-soo is pulling Richard Kim's financial records. If he stole those diamonds, he had to liquidate them somewhere. We find the buyer, we find the trail. We have less than 48 hours. "I know." Sana looked at him. This man who'd dropped everything to help her, who'd put his organization at risk for a woman he barely knew. "Why are you doing this, really?" Ji-hoon was quiet for a long moment. Then, because when I look at you, I don't see my maid. I see someone who survived 3 years of hell alone. Someone who speaks 5 languages and knows how to disappear, and still chose to surface to save me from a threat I didn't even know was coming. He turned to face her, his dark eyes intense. I see someone worth fighting for, worth protecting, worth... He didn't finish. Didn't need to. Sana's breath caught. Ji-hoon? His phone buzzed. He glanced at it and cursed in Korean. Min-soo found something. We need to get back to the penthouse now. The drive back was tense, silent. Sana's mind raced through possibilities, through timelines, through the fragments of truth they'd collected. Richard Kim had blood on his hands. Richard Kim was dead. Someone was cleaning up witnesses. Who benefited from keeping the truth buried? At the penthouse, Min-soo had papers spread across Ji-hoon's desk. Boss, look at this. 3 weeks after the diamond theft, Richard Kim made a deposit of $2.3 million into an offshore account. Half the value of the diamonds, Ji-hoon murmured. Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. Min-soo pulled up another document. That account was accessed last month. Someone withdrew the entire balance. Who? The account is owned by a shell corporation, but I traced the corporate filings and guess who's listed as the director. Sana's blood ran cold. Chen Wei. Chen Wei, Min-soo confirmed. The room went silent. He knew, Sana whispered. Chen Wei knew Richard Kim stole the diamonds. Knew Richard was dead. He's been sitting on this information for 3 years. Because he was waiting, Ji-hoon said slowly. Waiting for the perfect opportunity to use it. And when you surfaced, when he found Marcus Liang's daughter working for a rival organization, he saw his chance. A chance to do what? To start a war. To use the diamond theft as justification for moving against me. Against my territory. Ji-hoon's hands clenched. He never cared about the diamonds. He cared about the excuse they gave him. So he blamed my father, hunted my family, let us suffer for 3 years. Sana's voice shook with rage. All so he could eventually use us as pawns in his expansion plans. Yes, the single word was damning. Sana stood, pacing. We have the financial records. We have Sujin's testimony. We can prove Richard Kim stole the diamonds and that Chen Wei knew about it. That's enough to expose him. It's enough to make him dangerous, Ji-hoon corrected. If we go public with this, we're declaring war. He'll come after us with everything he has. Then we go to the Kim family, Sana insisted. Show them proof that Richard betrayed them, that Chen Wei has been covering it up. They'll want justice. Or they'll want to save face by eliminating everyone who knows the truth. Ji-hoon's voice was grim. Including you. Then what do we do? Ji-hoon looked at her and something fierce and protective blazed in his eyes. We use it as leverage. We meet with Chen Wei one more time. We show him we know the truth. And we offer him a choice. Walk away clean, or we burn his reputation to the ground. He'll kill us before he lets us expose him. Not if we do it right. Not if we have insurance. Ji-hoon pulled out his phone. Min-soo, I need you to prepare a package. Every document we have on Richard Kim's theft, Chen Wei's offshore account, and Sujin Park's testimony. Multiple copies. If anything happens to us, those documents go to the Kim family, the NYPD, and every major news outlet in the city. You're creating a dead man's switch, Sana realized. I'm creating a deterrent. Chen Wei is smart enough to know that killing us would expose everything. As long as we're alive, his secret stays buried. The moment we die, it all comes out. What if he doesn't care? What if he decides the risk is worth it? Ji-hoon stepped close, his hands framing her face. Then we fight. Together. But I'm not letting him take you, Sana. I'm not letting him take anything. His thumb brushed her cheek, and Sana realized she was crying. When had she started crying? I'm scared, she admitted. I'm so tired of being scared. I know. Ji-hoon's voice was unbearably gentle. But you're not alone anymore. You hear me? Whatever happens, you're not facing it alone. The last 48 hours crashed over her. The fear, the adrenaline, the desperate hope that maybe, just maybe, they could survive this. And underneath it all, this impossible, dangerous feeling growing between them. She kissed him. It was impulsive, reckless, probably the worst decision she could make. But his lips were warm and his hands were steady, and for one perfect moment the world narrowed to just this, just them. When they broke apart, Ji-hoon's eyes were dark with desire and something else, something that looked like promise. "When this is over," he said roughly, "we're talking about this." "When this is over," Sana agreed, "I'm not letting you out of my sight." His smile was sharp, dangerous, beautiful. "Good, because I'm not planning on letting you go." 3 months later, Sana stood in Ji-hoon's office and watched the sun set over New York City. The penthouse was quiet, peaceful in a way it hadn't been since that first terrible phone call. Chen Wei had taken the deal. Faced with irrefutable evidence of his involvement in covering up Richard Kim's theft, faced with the threat of exposure to the Kim family and law enforcement, he'd agreed to drop all claims against the Liang and Kang families. The debt was considered paid. He'd slithered back to San Francisco with his tail between his legs, his expansion plans shattered, his reputation damaged among those who mattered. The Kim family had been less cooperative. But when presented with proof of Richard's betrayal, they'd been forced to acknowledge that Marcus Liang had been innocent. They couldn't give Sana her father back. Wherever he'd disappeared to, he was still gone. But they'd offered reparations. Money she'd donated to organizations helping families affected by gang violence. Sujin Park had finally agreed to testify officially, cementing the case. She'd moved into a Kang family-protected apartment, her real identity secure, her real life finally possible. And Sana. Sana had stopped being a maid. She now worked as Ji-hoon's official translator and cultural liaison, a legitimate position that paid well and kept her at his side, where she wanted to be, where she belonged. "You're thinking too loud," Ji-hoon's voice came from the doorway. Sana turned to find him leaning against the frame, white shirt unbuttoned just enough to show that dragon tattoo, eyes warm with affection she was still getting used to. "Just remembering," she said. "Good memories or bad?" "Both." She crossed to him, letting him pull her close. "I'm grateful, you know, for everything you did, everything you risked." "I told you," Ji-hoon murmured against her hair. "I don't lose what's mine." "Possessive, always." He tilted her chin up, his thumb tracing her lower lip. "Any regrets?" Sana thought about the maid she'd been 3 months ago, scared, hiding, alone. Thought about the woman she was now, claimed, protected, loved. "Not a single one," she said. Ji-hoon's smile was worth everything they'd survived. "Good," he said, and kissed her like he'd been waiting all day to do it. "Because I'm not letting you go. Ever." Outside, the city glittered with possibility. Inside, wrapped in the arms of the man who'd chosen to stand beside her when he could have walked away, Sana finally felt something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Safe. Home. His.